recording, and we are recording. So yeah, that's the idea. I've prepared some small material just to get started, but I want this, and we want this to be a collaborative thing in which there is as much activity between us as possible. So yeah, maybe we can start doing some introductions and saying if we are building some project, if we are excited with some idea, we are here to see what happens. Every perspective is fine here. So yeah, maybe I'll start. So my name is Guillem. I'm based in Barcelona. I started developing Holochain maybe, a year and some ago, something like that. And now I'm helping out throughout the community with various projects. And yeah, I'm excited by things like mutual credit and yeah, community currencies, and basically any kind of holochain development that has some little twist to it, some hard problem to solve. So maybe the pattern that we can use is we name the following person that wants to go. So for example, Ruben.
Hi everyone, I'm Ruben. I'm also, everybody can listen to me properly, yeah? Good. I'm based in Barcelona too. I know VM from mutual friends, and we ended up getting to know each other a little bit more. I'm following the Holochain community, very interested in it, still not able to develop. I'm on my first year of web development, and I'm mainly interested in Holochain because of the decentralization that it promises. Also, like Josh, I think, in that sense. So yeah, I'm mostly interested in building my own thing, an idea I have that I think fits nicely in the way Holochain provides in the backend part. And I'm definitely willing to listen to everybody and to see what you have to propose, because I have a lot to listen to. All right, I'll give, here on my screen, there's Susan, and then there's Josh. So I'll give word to Susan, if that's okay.
Sure, greetings, thank you. As I mentioned before, I'm in Blackfoot territory, which is on the border, what we call the medicine line between the United States and Canada. And I've been working on a project for over a year now, which is called the Two-Row Flow Cultural Commons, which is basically an emerging common space, which will of course be built on Holochain. But at this point, I've just been working out the conceptual and the context, the content, and starting to look at the data. And I've invited my friend Stephen, who's in Vancouver, to attend today. He's already attended a hackathon, which was supposed to be on the ground in Seattle and then Portland. Basically, I'm here today because I'm not a developer, I'm an information architect, but I'm interested in something right now called Rome Research. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. Yeah. So I think this is like the absolutely most awesome thing right now for organizing information. I really think it would work on the commons. So I was just wondering, I wanted to throw it out if it's possible to do something in Holochain. That's it. Thank you.
And Susan, who are you naming?
I'm supposed to hand the baton to someone? Kamal, please.
Thanks, Susan. Yeah, that's really exciting. I would love to learn more about the Rome research. So my name is Kamal. I'm in the Seattle area, so pretty close to Suzanne. I have been part of the Commons class that we had with Jean and a few others, and so I'm really stoked about, you know, just
That's hi, can you hi.
Hey.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, so I'm trying to build a So we have decentralized biodigesters in the Seattle area that a company nearby in Seattle helped take centralized biodigesters and decentralize them. And now we are piloting one on an island near Seattle that's going to be community owned. And the digester makes compost water and biogas, and it charges a truck, and the truck moves the biogas to different farms. And they're trying to create a community ownership structure for the model. So that's what I'm trying to build with Holo, the kind of exchange of flows. So I already posted this on the forum last night. So finally published it. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Looking forward to learning more from y'all. Steven, next.
Right. So I was invited to this by Susan. So she actually got me involved in learning about Holochain, and hey, do you want to go to an event in Portland, a hackathon? Sure. And then COVID happened and I didn't go, but I was able to participate remotely, and that's where I connected with Kamal. And so we were kind of the design team, but I mean, really, Kamal just really ran with it, and I let him go because I wasn't really contributing a whole lot at that point, other than just like, cool, this looks good. But what I'm trying to do is just dip my feet in the water in Holochain and figure out how it works. So I do have some development experience. I might be considered a unicorn as a designer plus a coder, but I'm not that deep into the code that I could call myself like a full stack developer, even though I've tried to go that way. So I'm interested to learn a little bit more about how I can maybe get involved on the coding side and help Susan out with her project. But I'm also really intrigued by the idea of Holochain. So I'm pretty new to all this, but I was getting disenchanted by the blockchain kind of movement. And then this made me feel like, oh, there still is hope. So I also run an organization. I can't really even call it an organization, an idea called the Builders Collective. But the whole idea is that I just want to connect with people who are already doing really interesting things, and then be part of that movement of actually connecting people up. So Holochain seems like a really good way to do that. Oh, who's next? Tetsuya?
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Am I just supposed to introduce myself and tell everyone what I'm doing with regards to Holochain? Okay. So my name is Tats, and I'm from Tokyo, Japan, and I've met Holochain right after I started my company here in Japan. So I'm running a software dev shop, and I've been interested in blockchain since when I was in college, but was wondering how they would tackle the problems of scalability, and then I met Holochain and saw how uniquely designed the framework itself is, and how it is patterned with a lot of the things that are already working around us. So they use a lot of the biomimicry, and I really love that concept. And so right now, I'm the kind of the community organizer here in Tokyo. So we hold meetups here, and I translate some of the materials that comes from the developer holochain.org site and turn them into readable materials that Japanese could read. And Yeah, it's gaining a little bit of traction here right now in Tokyo, so that's good. Actually, I was just talking to Mike from Australia, from Redgrid, and he said one of the major energy providers here, called TEPCO, is interested with Holochain, so that's really good. And yeah, so those are the things that I'm doing. And aside from that, we've also just started our own Holochain project. It's called Kizuna, which is a messaging application that creates their separate networks per conversation that you do with others, or even with group chats that you're doing. So you could create your own space. So yeah, those are the things that I do. And I'm a developer myself. I wouldn't call myself a full stack developer yet, but I'm getting there. My actually Holochain was my first backend experience, so it's really fresh to see a new architecture. And so yeah, that's where I am. Thank you. So who Josh, are you done?
Me, I'm not, but since Stephen asked to bounce in a while, maybe we'll pass it to him quickly.
Okay, got it.
Did I get the name right? That's Stephen Cotter, yeah.
Glad to be here and get involved with the network. Can you hear me okay?
Very low.
Hold on, let me put my mic on. Is that better? Great. So yeah, my name's Stephen Cutter. I've been paying attention to Holochain for a couple of years now. About 5 of my top blockchain advisors, mentors, friends, all speak very highly of the blockchain technology, the community, how you can build applications on top of it, the mesh network components, data sovereignty. It checks a lot of the boxes. So we're getting engaged with the with Holochain. My team is Hemp for the Future. We focus on regenerator. I also am in the natural capital accounting space, and it's been about a 25-year study through the World Bank and the UN and many universities that put value on living ecosystems. And I have several partners that have been leading the research and studies on tracking all these ecosystem services. So that includes like biodiversity created, water purified, storm surge protection, carbon sequestered, oxygen produced. And Regen Network is one of those groups that track the soil science. I have another group that planted 9 million mangrove trees and track the value. Mangrove trees are a super plant. 1 hectare of mangrove trees over the course of its life provides $150,000 per hectare. So we're basically creating currency, regenerative currency that directly shows the action of planting a tree. So for instance, if you gave $10 to planting trees, you would get $10 worth of tree tokens in your wallet. That contribution would go directly to the tree planting person. They would track the impact with various either hardware or software through their phones or satellites or drones or etc. And then both parties would be able to retain the accumulated value over the life of the tree. So making money grow on trees is kind of what we've been working on. And yeah, I got like I said, a group of thought leaders that work in the space: Earth Dollar, Tree Coin, Earth Pulse. I just put some in the forum. Some of the people that have been working on this for years. Yeah, we're looking to create a regenerative marketplace for all these actions to sit, and even Holochain could be a dashboard where these even community projects around regenerative actions could take place. I've been working in this space for about 3 years. I participated in a couple hackathons around these components. I'll have my website up by the end of this week. It'll describe a lot of what we're about on the hemp space. I got a hemp material science incubator we're building that we can make anything out of hemp, and that's in Puerto Rico. I've been in Puerto Rico for about a year. But yeah, I'll send you some more links. But I think I've used my time. But I'm passionate about creating free societies that have systems that benefit the planet and humanity.
Sorry. We'll go Roberto.
Hey, I'm Roberto.
No, I'll do that. I'll do that.
Yes. Sorry for the feedback. I'm just next to Josh.
Turn your thing up, your volume up.
Yeah, can you hear me? So I'm in Liminal Village, Italy, and it's a place. It's a kind of a hacker space where you can actually live in. And what we do is we develop all kind of tools for community and, let's say, computer-aided communities, and to extend that to computer-aided society. So like all kind of tools that are important to connect to people, share what it is that we're doing, what we're passionate about, and then come together and do the thing. And we go from like an app that just indeed is changing resources, like without passing through a monetary system, all the way to a protocol to actually use exchange resources and account for resources without passing through the monetary system, but also taking care of making sure that it does not pass the planetary boundaries. So it's like a new microeconomic system that we're working on. And yeah, Holochain has been always, since the moment that I found out about it, has been always like, okay, we're probably gonna end up using that. But right now we just use any tools that is available. And we did use Holochain also with Thomas, that is also here. And one of the first hackathons, Holochain hackathon in Amsterdam, to develop like a liquid democracy tool. And I'm looking forward to actually reboot that now in with the Rust version. I'll pass it to Josh since he's here.
Hey. Oh yeah. I'll do it. Okay, cool. There we go. That's that. Hey, I'm Josh. I live everywhere and nowhere, but currently at Liminal Village, which is provisioned by Roberto over there, or over there on this screen. So while he is provisioning the micro identity of Liminal Village in scarce physical space, I'm working a lot on hackalong.io, which is abundant digital space for shared infrastructure, shared identity, because membranes are identity boundaries, but of identity, not of separation. So I'm working heavily on that, and then the way we assume we'll achieve planetary equilibrium, let's say, will be through local first technology that is eventually consistent at the macro level. So yeah, we run hackalongs and have fun building tools that we all need. So yeah, that's me. I will pass this over to, let's go to Lily.
Hey, sorry, yeah, I just turned on my video. So yeah, I'm Lily. I am from New York City. So I learned about Holochain in 2018 through a hackathon. So I was looking at blockchain at that time, and when I heard about hackathon, Holochain from Art, I was like, wow, this is a totally different type of thing, which you know, I really like the principle behind it. I also am very interested in the way the technologies are put together, the combination of the different pieces, you know, the Git, the agent centricity, and BitTorrent, similar to between BitTorrent and the cryptographic signature stuff. So I started digging deeper into it, and started working with other folks in New York City, started hosting the meetups and events here, and been kind of learning Rust along the way. And now want to just dig, keep digging deeper and growing the community and working with more people to kind of learn and grow together. Yeah. So Next, Ruben, have you gone yet? I don't know. Okay, who else?
Maybe Pippo could be, or Thomas.
Okay, I can go. Hi there, I'm Peppo. I actually worked with Guillem for a year now. I've been also following Holochain from a distance for some time, almost 2 years, almost from their very beginning. And I'm very interested in the technology, and I would like to get my hands, my feet wet, and try some prototype in Rust, which I'm a developer, but I don't know Rust, and so I would like to take this occasion to just try a prototype and see how it feels. And maybe who's missing? Milky KLIM?
Klim, yes,
Klim.
it's
Sorry,
me.
yeah.
So my name is Klim. I'm based in Berlin. Heard about Holochain a long time ago. Participated in a couple of hackathons, and I was working on a simple app, which is basically a copycat of Pastebin. But I wanted to see how it will work on Holochain. Never had time to finish it, and also I'm not that proficient in front end, so I would like to collaborate with someone who would be willing to do this part. And yeah, that's it. I pass it to Thomas.
Hi guys, if you can hear me okay. Yeah, I'm coming from, I'm in Spain, Alicante right now. Yeah, my mind's been on a lot of other things, so I'll try and be as coherent as I can. I've been following the Holochain story probably since 2016. I was disillusioned by blockchain and the architecture, or agent-centric architecture, for me. And then specifically a different type of internet, which is more peer-to-peer, where people have sovereignty and more control over their data and what they share. So it's my motivation for keeping in the ecosystem. I've been to a few hackathons along with Roberto and Josh, who I'm close with, and we are really keen to see some things being made for communities. Specifically, I have a vision of physical communities that use Holochain, where to empower them, and then a kind of network of these physical communities, which eventually spans the globe. It's kind of the narrative I'm looking at, and so yeah, I'm excited to work with people on any kind of community tools, whether it be economic, decision making, any kind of social architectural, and there's some good examples already we've started creating, and yeah, looking forward to continuing that work. So that's me. I'll pass it on to who hasn't spoken.
I think it's Otis, the last person.
Hello. Let's see. I guess I've been following Holochain for a very long time. I kind of know of it through like local currencies projects that the people involved in Holochain were involved with beforehand, and I guess I personally for a while was interested in blockchain stuff, but that was, I guess, a long time ago. And I also got to the point of being delusioned with it pretty quickly. Disillusioned with it pretty quickly, rather. And I don't know, I'm interested in the approach of Holo, and I'm just going through tutorials and trying to get set up with a dev environment right now. So that's where I'm at. I guess the things that I would most be interested in building would be probably gamey things that are related to the I guess social graph abstraction way of working with data and relationships.
Okay, yeah, I think I can see some connections forming already, right, Josh? So I just want to do a little check-in. We are a little over half an hour. So those of you who want, who can you turn on your cameras, and we'll do some of those. For those that are new to the Holochain community, we do a lot of these questions, and then you raise your hand to whatever level of comfort you are with the option. So for example, right now, I would like to continue talking and connecting to each other, or I would like to transition to talking about the projects and what we want to build. Where's everyone at? Yeah,
Projects were at the bottom.
maybe.
Sorry, I didn't. Okay.
Yeah, projects, continue chatting. Okay, maybe people. Okay, so maybe what we can do is talk about projects, not in breakout rooms, but together, so we can still see connections that can form between each other. So now I know what I want to build, or I have no idea what I want to build, and I'd like some facilitation around that. Where's everyone at? Okay, so most people know what they want to build, right? Okay, and now, yeah, I would like to use this time to ask questions, learn more about Holochain development, and what are the flows that work, what are the flows that doesn't. So learn, or I would like to use this time to organize my projects and possible team up with other people. Right, so everyone at least is half or up. So yeah, at least I would like some list of what people are working on. Maybe what we can do is on the forum, I can create a thread, and everyone that's working on a project can comment on it, and then with the Australia time zone, we can coordinate and see if there are any connections that can happen. And I encourage you to connect with each other as well offline and do sessions. So for example, Otis and Josh and Thomas are working on more or less the same thing. So I encourage you to connect and see what's up with that. Ruben and Klim, maybe there is something there also. So things like that I think are very important. Okay, so yeah, does anyone want to start, like sharing experiences, challenges they found as that maybe I or some other that has experience with Holochain can share some experience? Go.
I'm a bit stuck with implicit and explicit links, so I'd like to know about that. The other issues I'm having is my syntax, because I'm not really so clear on that stuff. Conceptually, I totally get how this all works, but then on like the more granular levels, I'm awful. So I'd like to kind of get into the weeds more.
Right. Okay, perfect. So I forgot to do one little check-in, which is I'm very experienced with Holochain development, and I don't even know what's an entry. Okay, okay. So maybe what we can do is do a little check-in. Tats or Thomas or anyone that or Lily, if you want to, if you like have some excitement to do some explanation, just go ahead. I don't want this to be too much me speaking, but anyway. So maybe we can start by saying that, yeah. Can I try some experiment? Let me try some experiment. So there is this resource. Because maybe this will help. Can you see my screen? Yeah, okay. So this is a resource I made. It's available to anyone. It's a playground simulation of a Holochain application that basically simulates how the system behaves. So I'm trying to see if this facilitates explaining Holochain basics to people. So, and I think it will. So let's try that. Okay, so we have here a Holochain DNA or application, which is a distributed application, right? So here are a bunch of nodes, and then every node is connected to some of their neighbors and other peers as well. Inside every one of the nodes, there is the source chain, which is the basic place in which agents can commit entries. Okay, so entries are the first most basic primitive that we can use in Holochain, and it's basically the only way we can add data to the system. We can then remove or update or link, but adding new data is done through creating new entries. So here we can see, for example, this node has two entries. Okay, this is the entry which has its entry ID. Every entry, everything in Holochain is identified by the hash of its content. So it's a content addressable store. That means that this entry basically it's immutable. You cannot change the content of the entry without also updating the hash. So once you create something, it's there and you can add metadata to it and you can mark it deleted or mark it updated, but you cannot really change it. So that's one thing. The other cool thing you can do in Holochain is link entries. So the DHT in Holochain contains metadata. It only contains metadata because it's a validating DHT. So, for example, IPFS and technologies like that are an append, sorry, no, not append only, but create only, sorry, you have two actions, create and get. In Holochain, you have more actions because there is metadata. And there is only metadata because Holochain is validating DHT, basically. So what Josh is asking about is the second basic primitive of Holochain, which are links. So links basically are a way of saying there is this link, if you think about graphs, this entry is linked to this other one. So you can say, for example, I have a tweet, and now I can say there is a link from the tweet to the agent who made the tweet. Why are tweets important? Because in the DHT, it's basically non-searchable. So the basic query that a DHT can handle is, I have this hash, get me the contents of this hash. That's basically the only thing that traditional DHTs are able to do. in Holochain, you can do other things. Like, for example, get me the links attached to this hash. So that creates an interesting scenario in which you have to think carefully about how you build your graph of entries to be able to navigate the data properly. Why? Because in the DHT, you cannot do things like get me all the tweets of the network. If you haven't prepared links to do that, it's basically impossible to go ask each node to retrieve all entries. Why? Because imagine if there are millions of nodes in the network, it would be like very, very expensive to go around asking everyone. So links are a way of cutting that time a lot and saying, okay, if I link the agent that has made the tweet with the tweet entry, now I can go get me all the tweets. If I know the agent ID, which normally I do, I can go get me all the links attached to this agent ID, and that navigates to these other entries that are scattered around the DHT. And you're able to retrieve them very, very quickly. Yeah, maybe this is not at stage that it's too useful. So let me check in first. This is landing very well. I already knew that, or this level of beginner detail is necessary, and okay, continue this. Okay, yeah. So what Josh is asking is something like implicit versus explicit links, which is not an official like Holochain concept, but it's a very real one when you are thinking about designing applications. So explicit links are actual links, actual Holochain primitives that you commit to the DHT. So for example, I say, hey, there is a link from the agent ID to the tweet. So these are tweets that Holochain can process, and Holochain now goes and attaches the link to the base entry place neighborhood in the DHT. The links always go from a base to a target entry, and you can attach as many links as you want to any base entry. What are implicit links in this case? Implicit links are references that Holochain doesn't know about, and they are only included in the contents of an entry. So imagine I design a tweet clone. Twitter is actually a good example for a beginner DHT design. You have to think about how do you avoid collisions between tweets. Why? Because, for example, if the entry only contains the contents of the tweet, I make a tweet, Josh makes a tweet. If the tweet contents are the same, Holochain will interpret that they are the same entry. And for example, if I get a retweet, Josh's tweet gets a retweet as well. So you have to think very carefully on what you put in the contents of the entry. So how could we mitigate that? I can add, for example, who made the tweet inside the contents of the
question.
Yeah, go.
So what you're talking about is that how do we avoid hash collision? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, and this is the case also in other content addressable distributed systems, or not only distributed in general content addressable systems. So yeah, in Holochain, every agent has a hash, not a hash, a public key which identifies the agent. So what I can do is include the agent who made the tweet inside the entry itself. Normally, you don't have to do that for every entry because everything in Holochain is signed. So you know who made everything. But in this case, we want to do it because then if I do a tweet and Josh makes a tweet, those tweets have not the same hash because they have different contents. So Holochain will interpret them differently. And this tweet can get retweets and this tweet doesn't get those retweets, which is what we want here. So in this case, yeah, Josh.
So is the purpose of implicit linking then to avoid hash collision, and then explicit linking is somewhat like an entry but reframed? I'm not really sure what an explicit link looks like. And I assume since everything can be linked, then you can do that with explicit links, and the way to avoid hash collision is with implicit. It's kind of a solution for that. Can you? Yeah.
Independent, but let me do an example. So imagine I go here and I commit an entry, right? It doesn't really matter what the contents of the entry are. So I create the entry and now the entry is here, right? And now I say, okay, let's link entries. So let me grab this entry ID. Sorry, this is a bit rusty still, but it works. So let me.
It's a bit JSON, mate.
Eh?
It's not rusty, it's a bit JavaScript.
It's a bit JavaScripty, yeah. So here, an explicit link is the one that you create calling link entries in the HDK, right? So here you have to input a base entry address, a target entry address, a link type, which is author, I don't know, and some tag, which you can put whatever you want here, okay? What you do here is actually create a special type of entry that adds metadata to the DHT. That's an explicit link, right? What is, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Can you do that again, maybe a bit slower, please?
Sorry, yeah. So I have two entries created in the DHT and I can link them. So I have to provide the base entry address, which is where the link will be stored, and the tag entry address, which is where the link will be pointing to, right? So for example, here is my base entry address. This is the hash of the entry address, right? And this is the same, sorry. Yeah, I don't want them to be the same. Okay, so base entry address, target entry address. So what this is going to do is create a link besides the base entry in the DHT that points to this target address. And then there is a link type, which is what's the type of this link? What is this link referring to? So yeah, I'm saying this is the author of the tweet author, something like that. And then with some tag, it doesn't really matter, right? And then you create it. And now you can see this created a special type of entry, which is a link at entry. You don't even have to define this in your Holochain code because it's a system built-in primitive. And you can see base, target, type, tag.
I have a little question for later.
Okay, do you want to do it now?
Well, yeah, it's fitting. I think it's okay. So if I understood correctly, let's assume 2 entries or maybe say 2 units, but we can understand links under the Holochain perspective as almost metadata, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah,
totally
exactly.
metadata. So say for example, I have a node, which is the dark green circle here. I have the node of the network, right? I publish an entry, and I want to say, okay, this entry relates to something else, in this kind of ways. So this entry is the author of this second entry, and it's also the, I don't know, the first creator of this entry in the case of a tweet, right? So
Yes.
links are ways of adding metadata and relationships between entries.
Exactly right.
Okay.
So if we go a
Hey,
little
Guillaume,
deeper, yeah.
Can I just? So this goes to what Ruben just said about links. That applies to both implicit and explicit links. They're both metadata entries.
No.
Correct? No.
No. That's exactly the point. But yeah. Okay. So let's get to that. What do implicit links look like? Implicit links are actually inside the entry. So what I can do is do tweet right there. Previous tweet address and now this is an implicit link. Why? Because we are not actually doing link entries. We are not calling link entries function in Holochain. We are just doing creating a create entry, right? Why is this still a link? Because you actually can navigate from this tweet to the previous tweet because you have the address there. You don't need metadata to know what was the previous tweet.
Another one.
It's kind of an implicit link.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Sorry.
It makes sense in the sense that you create an entry, which is a standalone entry in terms of entry type. So it's a full-fledged entry, but because you give that entry the previous tweet address as a, I don't know, as a characteristic or as an attribute, you give it the previous tweet address, and so you're linking two entries, which is the same as doing a link, an explicit.
Yeah, exactly.
Terms.
Yeah, exactly.
But
so
why
maybe,
would you want to do that?
Because there are a lot of times in which you want to navigate between entries and you don't need to do a link.
Okay.
So, for example, a tweet contains the author address.
Mm-hmm.
And it contains it to avoid hash collisions. We don't need to add a link from the tweet to the author because links are costly. They cost us exactly as much as an entry to hold on the DST and to validate and so on.
And an implicit link, since the entry has already been created, it's less costly because you just have to add something to the JSON or to wherever that info is stored.
Yeah, it's basically costless.
Okay.
It's Pepo, I see you. I'm going for you next. It also is related to, is this relationship many to many, or is this relationship one-to-one?
So implicit links would be one-to-one.
If you do previous tweet address, yes. If you do, you can do also previous tweet addresses and say this.
Okay.
Right? This is one-to-many. Okay. But you cannot have many-to-many with implicit links in this kind of weird way. Does it? Maybe this doesn't make sense, but
that sounds important.
Yeah, it is.
Kind of a big deal. Yeah. Okay, makes sense to me.
Yeah. So we create the entry and we have here the. Yeah. Pepo?
Yeah, I just wonder why. One, from my perspective, what I understand from links, there is one aspect of them that is really important, and it is that they are a way of getting out of the content addressable world. And soft links, so I wonder why we haven't mentioned that, because is considering the links as a way of having mutable references to entries, a way of understanding why they are needed and also why they are more expensive, in the sense that once you have a hard link, I mean a link between two entities, you also need to build some sort of rules on top of it to understand what are the links, because they can be updated and you are in a distributed application. So some people can think a tweet is there, a link is there, other people don't know that this link is there. And this lack of consensus about whether the link is there or not won't happen if the link is soft, because if the link is soft, it's in the content, is in the hash, and everybody knows it's there. So if you go to soft links, you add a new dimension of complexity in terms of the network agreeing what is the content of the what is the content of the entry, which is includes the metadata. I don't know if this helps anyone or the discussion, but this, I mean, mutable references, how to handle mutable references is in a way one of the inspirations behind links from my understanding. So I don't know if this helps also.
Yep, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And we only are able to have links in Holochain because we have validation rules, as you said. If we didn't have the ability to validate which links are invalid or not, anyone can create any link to the application, and you cannot trust link metadata in the same sense that you can trust content addressable data, which is what Pepo is referring to. Why? Because if you have a hash and you do a get entry, you receive the entry, hash it, and compare. And say, yeah, it's the same hash. So you don't actually have to trust the people that know that returned you the content, because you know the content is the one that you asked for. But that's not the case in links or in mutable references, which is what Pepo is talking about. So yeah.
I just ask you to clarify the terms mutable or immutable, or my understanding of them, of links thus far. So an implicit link is a 1:1 or 1:many. It's contained within an entry and it's immutable. I think that last bit's right, I'm not sure. And then explicit links are many::many. They're a special type of entry and they are mutable.
Yeah, exactly right.
Brilliant, thank you.
And now let me walk you through where is that link stored, because maybe that's what you are referring to as well. So for example, we have this link here. Yeah, this link here says, hey, I'm linking the base entry WJ, which is this one, yeah, to this one, which is CX. So where is this link stored as metadata in the DHT? In the base entry neighborhood, we can see here which nodes are holding that entry. And if we go there, in the DHT shard of these nodes, which is the space, the small little DHT slice that this node is holding, we can go see the base entry, which is this one, I think, metadata. Here are the links. For every link add that someone does in the DHT, wherever it may be, if it has as the base entry this one, it will be added as metadata to this base entry as such. And now you can go and say, get me the links for this entry, because they're there. Did that help?
Personally, yeah, I'd like it if you could go back on the last bit and just do it slower again, just exposure.
Okay, sorry. So we have, this is it, yeah. We have done a link between this entry, which is WJ, right, as a base, to this one, which is CX as a target, right? And I think this is it. See, this is the information, this is the special entry that specifies what's in the link, right? With me, that's, yeah, okay. So now this link, this explicit link, has to get published in the DHT as metadata, and where it will be stored besides the base entry. So let's go there. Yeah.
So besides the base entry being the pale green dot that is QMW, I don't know, QMDW. So that's the base entry, and the target entry then is the blue one, which is, I don't know what its ID is, QMCX. Exactly. So is the link is not stored in the base entry, it just points at the base entry and points at the target entry, correct?
The link is stored as metadata attached to the base entry in the DHT.
Okay. Can I say something that I think could be useful? Because if you go to the link content, you just select it, yeah. Maybe you can see that it says type link add. I mean, I think this is important because it's not that this is the link explicitly. Maybe this is an operation on the link. And when you want to know the link, or what are the links of an entry, you have to filter or process multiple operations and then derive the link in a way. Can you remove links? So it's not that the link is there, but there in that hash chain, in that chain, are all the operations that if you follow them, you will result on a list of links. And as more operations or transactions arrive there, this virtual list of links changes. So it's a bit different because it's not actually like a mutable reference in the sense that you can go there and change the target. Because if you change the target, the link entry the hash of the link entry will change. If you want to change the target, what you probably need to do is to add some sort of remove link and add new link. And then when you process the 3 transactions, you understand that the original link was removed and then a new one is there. So I don't know if this can help. It's like the link doesn't exist as an entry. It's derived from a sequence of incremental changes to the link list. I mean, maybe this is the case, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so
that's cool. I'd actually ask another question on that then is, where is the pointer of that link stored? Well, I guess it's base entry. So the base entry has a thing attached to it that says, this is a table of links, and then there's add link, remove link, add new link, and then points to this entry.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So let's go there. This entry is the base one. This will be stored on this neighborhood, right? So entries are stored in the closest nodes to their hash. So you can see here, every one of these nodes has its own ID. So this starts with W. So yeah, that looks right. So WXX are holding the entry, okay? So we can go there and see in the DHT shard, not in the source chain. The source chain only contains entries made by this node. So this is private space and DHT is public space. So in the DHT shard, if we, sorry, let's go again. So yeah, go. Okay. So whatever any agent commits in Holochain, they commit to the source chain, which is the only chain there is in Holochain. Your source chain is personal, is yours. Nobody else can attach things to it. And when you commit an entry, other source chains don't grow. So for example, this is the node that has been committing everything. Other nodes don't have anything else than the initial entries on their source chain. Okay. Then we arrive in the DHT. So source chain is private space in which you commit things. DHT is public space in which you hold things that others have committed. Right, so in this DHT shard, these are the hash of the entries that this node is holding. And we can see, okay, this entry with the ID blah blah has this content, agent ID payload. Sure, yeah.
Can I just recapitulate for my own understanding that
Sure.
source chain is one thing and shard is another thing, and you'll basically hold a shard of the DHT, and other people will hold shards. Then you'll be able to locate that shard via whatever entry you have in your source chain, something along those lines.
You don't necessarily want to locate your anyone's shard.
Yeah, to forget about that part.
Just a question and just a reply to what Josh said. So is my understanding correct in saying that the shard that you store, like the shard of the DHT that a node would store, those are entries that are closest to his agent address?
Exactly.
Is that okay? And
yeah.
I have one more question. So just to recap what you said. So basically we have a source chain in the DHT, and there are entries that are private, which only get stored in the source chain and doesn't get published in the DHT. And there are entries that are public that gets stored in the source chain first and also gets published in the DHT. But headers of the entries always gets published in the DHT, right?
Exactly.
Whether it's private or public. And so my question is, when you commit a private entry that has a link, so the link entry also stays private, or does it, because like I was thinking of a case wherein you would link a private entry to a public entry, but that doesn't really make sense. So I couldn't really find any use case to it. But then those are,
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know exactly if the link would get published, but there is no goal in that link being published. Because if the base entry is private, you will not be able to attach metadata to it because it doesn't live on the DHT. So links from private entries don't make sense.
That makes sense. Okay, got it.
Links to private entries, maybe that makes sense, and I don't know the answer to that. That's a very good question.
Okay.
That's an art question. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So answering your question too, if you see here, this agent has this ID starts with X, and then all the entries are close to starting with X. So starting with X, starting with I, Y, starting with W. If we pick this one, which is E, with like underscore E, this is holding only entries that are closer to that one. So yeah, you're exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
So just as a very, I know the answer to what I'm going to say, but just as a very stupid clarification, that means that it's not necessarily a matter of physical proximity, it's a matter of hash proximity. That is, you're going to share your entry with nodes that are close to you on the hash level. You're going to share your part of your public entry with those nodes whose hash is alphanumerically very close to you. They could be in Mumbai, but they could be close in the hash way.
It's close. I'm sorry. It's close to the hash of that entry.
Yeah.
Not necessarily your node. Yeah.
Not necessarily your node.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing about that is that it's not alphanumerical, it's binary.
Okay.
So this is binary encoded.
Okay.
But apart
But
from
I
that,
see
exactly
alphanumerical, but what the machine sees is binary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Go ahead. Just jump in the conversation.
No. I was amazed by that information. Sorry.
I just wanted to clarify then that the nodes we're talking about here that we're storing entries on that are within a close hash proximity, those nodes are holding a DHT shard.
All nodes are holding the DHT shard.
Okay, cool. I just needed to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah. Peppo, you want to go or no? That doesn't.
From the looks of it.
No, I am okay. I actually was writing on the chat that I have to jump off. Sorry.
Okay. So bye. If we can say goodbye, bye now. So just to end this long journey to see where the link stored, if we remember, the link was from WJ to CX. So if we go to the node that is storing WBJ, sorry, and to the metadata, we can see pointers to the entries that the links specify. Does this make sense? Okay, so we have a link from WJ to CX. Where would this link live? In the base entry metadata, in the DHT. So this is the base link. This is the base entry, and inside the metadata there is this list of links.
So it'd be stored close to WJ then?
Exactly. Correct? Attached to WJ.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. So I think that concludes journeying to links and so on.
Thank you. That's useful as hell.
Yeah, thanks. Kamal?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That was a really helpful kind of model, what you had drawn out there. Is there a group of designers who are not necessarily coders who are using that same model to talk about design architecture for Holo apps?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of the question. Yeah, but the question.
The model that you had, the kind of, I'm gonna turn my video on. The diagram you had, is there a group of designers who are kind of talking about that architecture, from an information architecture standpoint, that don't have coding skills necessarily?
So are you talking, are people using this tool for that, or are designers?
Yeah, are designers assembling like this to have discussions like this from an architecture standpoint, from a design standpoint? And should they, not.
Yeah, I think to Gillum, can I jump in a little bit?
I'm not anything here.
Okay, so thanks. So yeah, to a certain extent, I think like earlier, you guys, Hadaya and Gillum went through another session about the links, and then I think a few of us were talking about, yeah, exactly, like what we went through here. What's the trade-offs between using implicit versus explicit links? And I don't know, I don't know whether there's still more sessions after that, talking, kind of applying. I think, Kamal, what you're asking is that, like, if you come in with different use cases of different apps you're building, what links should be set up as explicit, what should be set up as implicit, and what are the pros and cons for the different ways to set up the links. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a coder, but I have an app idea. So the structure that was on the diagram and how it was all interconnected, if we had a use case, how could we apply it to that? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for a specific use case, would it be better to use implicit? How you connect relate different entities, right? Yeah, those would be good conversations to have, actually. Right?
Yeah, I agree. I was just going to answer from what I understand of them, because this is the mutable versus immutable thing, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you would hard code the link immutably. So that would be within the entry, you would put in the link, as that then gets hashed. Yeah. So provided the link will never change. So if the link is maybe pointing at an anchor or something else that doesn't change, then you can put it in there. Whereas if it's liable to change and needs to be mutable, then you would create a link entry kind of link, an explicit link.
So actually, to that point, Gillum, maybe I'm not understanding this correctly. If you do implicit link, so let's say you store a vector of links from a Twitter hash to all the posts, right? You can, those links are mutable, aren't they? I mean, can you modify like what links you connect there? Because you're going to be when you say immutable, you mean the set of links would always stay static? I think you can modify those.
Yeah. So
because I mean, as more posts are added, right?
Yeah, you can add link or remove link. You cannot update link. So in that sense, they're immutable.
Are we talking about explicit or implicit links right now?
Explicit.
You could mark explicit links, mark them as deleted, as in inaccessible. Not physically remove them, but mark them as, you know what, I'm sorry, but you cannot see them anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be removed.
Yeah, and that actually
links are mutable, just for clarity. I think that's what we're saying. Yeah,
I don't like the property mutable or immutable for links, actually. Why? Because they give mutable properties to entries, but they are immutable by themselves. So I kind of don't like that mental model.
Okay, I've just heard people using them both, so that's where my confusion arises from in the first place. I completely agree with you. So explicit, implicit works nicely for me, but to understand the difference is good. Sorry, go ahead, Lily, please.
No, Josh, I was just going to ask you, when you say immutable or mutable links or immutable, I was just trying to get a better understanding of what you think that implies. What are the characteristics? Because I think that's important. Like, what does that? What's the implication there?
So yeah, it's as Guillaume says, it's a pretty bad mental model. So implicit links are immutable because they're contained within entries and then hashed. So then they can't change, or they'll change the hash of the entry, and that'll cause all kinds of problems. So that side is fine because that is immutable. But then when we say mutable for explicit links, I mean that they can be changed, but they are still immutable on the base level. So it's a bad mental model there. But yeah,
I see. So you're thinking of the hash change. Got you.
Yeah, in ways. It's a bad model, but if we understand those kind of things, then we can kind of navigate these waters more clearly.
Okay, great. That helps. Thank you for clarifying that.
Thanks for solidifying this in my head, because 2 weeks ago this wasn't clear.
So we are an hour and 20 minutes in. I'm fine to keep going. I don't have a problem. But if so the schedule was 1 hour, but if someone, so let's do a check-in. I want to keep going. This is great. I'm tired, and let's leave it at this for today. Where's everyone at? Okay,
It was about going on or stopping?
I don't remember. No, going on, continue, or leave it for now.
I don't care. I'm all up for it.
Okay, so I saw a lot of here, so maybe like 10-15 minutes, and that's it. Something like that works. You can leave whenever you want. So, okay, that's
just a thought, but maybe we should cover something softer on the brain so that we don't lose new information that will come along. So we could maybe do more socializing, planning projects kind of stuff now, rather than deep into hashes and stuff like that, because there's only so much you can absorb. But that's just my view, so we could do a check-in on that as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to do it?
I gotta leave, but thank you all.
Okay, bye. That's.
This is Kamal. So I have a project that has some pretty simple flows that I'd like to apply like as a use case to that. Wondering, like when is the opportunity to actually do that? And I have the flows visualized as well. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, the question was when is the time to do what part of the process?
So I want to build a very simple app I don't know how simple, but for an exchange of biodigester materials, so the compost water and the gas. So those flows, I'd like to be able to use Holochain to, monetize, or whatever you call it, facilitate the exchange.
Mm-hmm.
So wondering if that could be a use case that we use in this environment.
Sure. So maybe what we can do is use your project. You can explain what your flows are, and we try to map what designs should be present in Holochain. Does that seem great for everyone? I like it. Yeah. Okay, go for it.
Okay. Let's see. Thank you. I have to find my window here. So this is the flows. So basically, I'll show you the actual graphic of it. So this is the digester. It's on an island nearby in Seattle. It creates biogas and liquid plant food. That goes in a truck that's powered by the biogas to a farm that's experiencing climate change water issues. So it fills up this large tank waters the farm, and the goal is to sell that product and then the product to come back. This part is still in process, but we do have a tofu factory who's feeding the digester right now. And then lastly, the reason why this is even happening is the island pays $275 a ton to get rid of our compost right now, and it travels quite a distance. And the county is supplementing a lot of that because it's expensive. So they're actually paying for this, helping pay for this digester to keep it all on the island. And so I'm looking to use Holochain to sort of monetize or whatever these flows. So besides this is centralized. So here's the flows. Here's the tofu factory. They send it to the biodigester. That makes the liquid fertilizer, which powers a truck, or which gets moved by a truck to this farm. Like I said, here's the tank on the farm, and then this is the biogas station that makes biogas for this truck. It's a relatively simple scenario, and we have about 3 of these in the Seattle area. So we want to understand how to replicate the model as well.
Right, and you said that this was a system that was already like working in centralized servers?
Yeah, so no, we're not. Right now it's on Google Sheets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And what would a Holochain app version of this look like? Would it look like something like people that all the agents that are participating in the process signing off, hey, I have finalized this process, and now this person gets this product from this process, and then this goes and you can see the trace, and you can then pay for that somehow. How would
Exactly,
this look
yeah.
like?
So I had a little mock-up that I created. Actually, I won't even go to the mock-up, but basically this Island Spring Organics, usually they pay a ton of money to get rid of their compost, but instead they should get discounts because now it only has to travel a very short distance, but they still have to pay to get rid of their food waste. So how do they track their food waste to get biodigested? And then the biodigester makes money off of the compost and the gas. So when another food waste comes on, then they can also track how much they're sending to the biodigester.
So the purpose of this app, you're thinking, is to track the this different
material flow.
So that's the goal, right, of these app? Is that what you would like the app to do? At least the first version.
Exactly, yeah. And even if we just talked about one flow from here to here, just that number, and imagine there was 3 different people doing that. That data needs to eventually go to King County, you know, like, so because, yeah, yes. So what I'm trying to understand is how do I understand these flows and visualize them?
Yes. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this is just something that came to mind. Is so like sometimes we usually put in, it's open to translate to the requirements of the app, you know, based on the goal, and then some of the basic operations, some like sort of core entities involved in these different pieces. So I mean, like what you just explained is very helpful. Like what are the different, you know, different transfer points, and what's being transferred, what's being exchanged, what you want to track, and sort of kind of creating a model of what apps are there. And then, you know, back to what Gillian was showing with the graphs, it's like what, you know, how do we link things together, and then the kind of drilling down into kind of active designing what operations sort of different modules we want to create and how to combine these modules. Right. So I don't know. I mean, is this a session that we want, something we maybe want to do in the next session, or?
I don't know. Lily, are you referring to the functions, like the functionality of what he's building?
Yeah, so the first piece would be the requirements, and then, so they're creating the model, the core model, like what are the entities, what are the relationship, and then like what are the functionality, operations that that need to be performed to achieve the what this app is trying to do.
Okay. Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I would add something to that before, because it's kind of a weird special case. So normally you go from requirements on. But in this case, this seems too much HoloREA material. So I don't know if you know about that project or POSPI.
I know about RAI, but I didn't know there was stuff going on around it.
Yeah, so HoloREA is basically the biggest project on Holochain that's being built right now. It's basically REA accounting and traceability across supply chains on Holochain with different actors and so on. POSPI is building generic infrastructure to map as many use cases as possible. So maybe one of the first things to look at is, can we map this on top of HoloREA? So HoloREA provides things like a generic resource type. So maybe if you do here, there are 4 resource types. That's I don't know, I don't remember what exact products you talked about, but there are 4 resource types, and these are the agents that exchange them. Maybe, I think it maps pretty well. POSPI was actually on this first session on the Australia meeting, and he's doing the hackathon as well. So if you want to connect with him, maybe on the forum or on Mattermost, I think he's pretty busy with the situation of COVID and so on, but maybe you can connect with him. And also review HoloREA code and documentation, which there is a lot of.
What was that person's name again?
POSPI. POSPI is his username.
How do you spell
actually. He's POSPI.
Okay, thank you. And so you're saying that this would be too close to what they're doing, so it wouldn't make sense in this scenario?
No. The two was referring to it maps too well not to use HoloREA.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
So they are not domain specific. They are doing generic infrastructure to cover for a lot of supply chain use cases.
I was wondering if there was something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
and Kamel, one thing you might do, what I've been doing with the Commons is what I did for the last year was the UX research. So that's the user experience research. So I don't know who the shareholders are, the users, all of those different users, you can try to find out what their use, like how they would use it, right? So that reveals a lot about what you need to build.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
And it keeps shifting as you learn more about how they will actually use that, right? Or what their mental models are as well, not just yours. Right?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm getting into that phase of really starting to sit with folks, and I'm using this as a way to show what's happening and then trying to understand like what an actual product would look like, but how to think like Holochain was my big block. Like, how do I do that? So that's why I was saying the graphic Guillaume had about the decentralized nodes, that was really helpful. And I had seen that before, but I didn't realize how kind of it mapped to the code as well, which is really great.
So Kamal, my thoughts on Suzanne's comments is that the way to think about this would be in terms of resources, as in what is moving around, the events, the transformations or verbs that happen there, and then the agents, which are the stakeholders and actors within the systems. So if you can kind of take those three categories and like file the experiences in there, then you'll be able to kind of implement them on more generic infrastructure. So you'll have a specialized implementation for your system that will fit into the REA system.
Got it. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. I appreciate that.
Yeah, cool.
Thanks for sharing. Looks great.
Thank you.
Really cool. Looks like a great project. Well done, guys.
Would it be possible for me to sort of jump in and see if there's the question that Kamal had, I think might have been, well, how do you structure the data? And it sounded like Lily was saying, well, what if you just create an entity relationship diagram that sort of figures that out? You're familiar with entity relationship diagrams, Kamal?
I am not, no.
No? Okay, so I created something for a web agency that I worked for. So this is a long time ago where, how do I share actually? Share my screen here.
At the bottom is a little green arrow.
In a way,
oh yeah, right, okay.
The little
that
box
should be really
with the green
obvious to
arrow.
me. Great. So I created this, basically a bunch of an entity relationship diagram where I'm trying to figure out, well, here's what I want to be able to do is be able to take a look at how do we run this agency? We've got clients, we've got projects, we've got tasks, and they all relate to each other. And then we can map these things to different timelines. So we can go, okay, this task is going to be related to someone who's going to be working on this. And then a project manager is going to assign these sorts of things. So then I created a relationship entity diagram that's basically saying, like, here's the amount of information that we're going to need to pull together to understand how this all works. So we have, you know, all these client services with all these different elements related to it. So I'm wondering, rather than going too deep into what I was doing here, would Holochain be able to do something like this where, okay, each of these, now, can you tell me what I'm not clear on DHT, what's the acronym?
Distributed hash table.
Okay, right. So each of these elements that are being tracked is going to have their own unique ID. So it's similar to basically working with a Git repository, right? Similar?
It has similarities.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's similar.
Okay. What are the major differences?
So with Git, what you are doing is committing content addressable blocks of things and then updating a mutable pointer to that block.
Right.
So you have commits, and that commit is hashed, and then the branch now points to this commit. But the tricky thing here is that that commit contains a whole lot of content addressable blocks. which are your files and things. In this case, it's much more creating scattered blobs and then linking between them. You don't have a repository, a big entry point or something like that. You have scattered data, and you add on top of that whatever you need to find your data.
So you take a graph and you make relationships out of it.
Yeah, you add relationships between the entries, and that's the graph.
And that's a DHT in the end. Well, that's a difference between Git and whatever.
Yeah, that's
one of the
differences.
main. Okay. Trying to add.
So yeah, and actually I would want to add to what you were saying, because I think this is really important and very interesting about yeah, just let me share. Maybe some of you have seen this. So about entry relationships diagrams, if my computer unfreezes at some point. Wow, okay. You'd think 32 gigs of RAM would make the job, but yeah, so I can start explaining. So what we saw there was UML-like diagrams and things like that, which is cool to make your mental model, but doesn't really apply well to Holochain. And why is that? In Holochain, in a lot of cases, you have to split what otherwise would be one single entity on a UML diagram. You have to split that. Oh, hey, can you hear me well?
I hear you, Guillem.
Yes.
All good?
Yeah, okay, sorry. So what you have to do in a lot of cases actually is take one entity on that mental model and split that entity into two entries. And why is that? Because updating on Holochain is weird. You cannot say create entry and then keep updating that same entry and be happy and enjoy life. Because the thing is that it will be like gigantically expensive to do that. Why is that? Because, yeah, I guess I cannot. Okay, so my screen's frozen. Sorry, guys. Why it's not best practice to do that? Because what you are doing when you're updating the entry is actually marking the entry updated and pointing to the new version. And then what actually happens when you do a get entry is you follow the update chain. But this gets expensive amazingly quickly. So imagine if you have an entry updated 10 times, getting the last version of that entry from the base, from the original one, is like doing 10 get entries. It doesn't scale like at all. And what you normally do here is you take the entity and you split it into two. One immutable entry that doesn't change, that never changes, and then a data entry, which is the one that keeps being updated. And then you do a link from the not changing one to the changing one. And that way you always can go get the entry that doesn't change and get the latest link. I'm sorry if that was too deep into the weeds, but it's just an example to say a little careful when using UML and entity-like diagrams, because in Holochain, the normal case is that it doesn't map well, mainly because of updating. And I wanted to share with you the entry relationships diagram we've been using in the Holochain community. Let's see. Oh, no. Yay. Yay, it works. Okay, so it's a version of entry relationships diagrams, and I can share this link with you. and these actually contain instructions on, hey, how to design a module in Holochain. You specify your entry structs and links, and you do an entry relationship diagram, which looks like this. So this is a graph of all the entries and the links between them. This is akin to the UML entity diagram, but not exactly the same, because it's not exactly the same mental model. It's not a relational database, in other words. Sorry about that. My computer took a lot of time.
I got a question on those entity relationship diagrams.
Sure.
Because mine ended up a bit of a mess there for the architecture course. Is there a way to point from an object to, let's call it a category? I don't know. So what I was trying to do was, I'll show you. It's pasted there. I can share my screen perhaps. Because you see, I did 2 iterations on this because I was just trying to make it all fit together. It's basically levels of scale, and anchors seem to be a level of scale above entries, in that they're a collection of things. So when you try make an entity relationship diagram with anchors, then seems to like get really messy, even with just 3 basic things. There's my screen. Desktop, that the one? Yeah, let's just say desktop. So I'll do that, and hey, it's hidden it. So let's click that. No, let's click that. And we scroll down here. You see all proposals and all responses and all handles, a collection of anchors each. And the issue I'm having is putting proposal 1 to Alice's handle, let's say, but it could be all users instead. So let's see, all responses. So there's the for against all. The all here should technically point to all proposals as well, because all responses will be involved in all proposals. So when I try and make it again, there's iteration 2, and it just gets hairier and hairier. So I'm just wondering, is there a way to point from, say, Alice's handle to all proposals? So there's all Alice's proposals. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I understand you, and I don't think there is in Mermaid. Okay, so 2 comments here. Have you thought about doing only one type of link and attaching whether it's for or against in the tag?
No, I didn't think about that, and actually that's probably the right way to think about it, because they're the verbs, aren't they?
So if you can navigate the graph with the minimum amount of links, that's probably the best alternative. That's like a rule of thumb. And then tags are really useful to attach semantic meaning to links. You can say link from all to proposals and then add the against, and then you can filter by tag. Get all links from all to proposals that have against as tag.
Okay, so that's a tag. Yeah, okay. See, I wasn't factoring in tags. That's probably it.
Yeah, and then the other one is that, yeah, I'm recognizing now that these types of diagram don't fit that well on what we need. I want to extend the Holochain playground, so what you've seen, this little DHT animation, to handle entry grabs as well. Let's see if this weekend I have time to do that. but I think this would be useful as well, because this would be like spot on for what Holochain does.
Yeah, that would be great. I guess for my type of I don't know, thinking or maybe tackling the design of an application, which is not the same as theorizing or really thinking about it. It's really cool or really useful to me to have this. Okay, here's the stories. Create an entry diagram, that's going to clear out things from the more phrases towards a diagram, put it in boxes, translate that into blocks of code, do actual code, or whatever it is that you suggest. I find that it gets me an extra drive. It helps me just by the sole fact of existing.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we are almost 2 hours in. Maybe I'm tired. At least maybe we can leave it at here. Next week we are going to have it was going to be a check-in sprint session. So hey, how are you doing with your projects? What are you stuck with, and so on. But it can be whatever we want it to be. Like today didn't go as I thought, and it was amazingly cooler that what I thought. So because everyone's got their own project and their own motivation that they are already attached, and having that kind of energy driving people, at least for me, is that's what I do, and it's good to have that energy around too. So if we are in contact in the forum, if you're not there, maybe that's a good place to join, and there are a lot of resources and so on there. If you are stuck in your project and want some support, I can try to give it. I don't have that much time, but I'm game to see projects and help whenever. So yeah, if anybody has some final thoughts or suggestions on what we could do better.
I really appreciated the time, dude. I probably found this more valuable than the architecture course for the simple fact of the feedback. So appreciate every moment you spend with us. Thanks.
Yeah, I go to say the same. These things for me are very valuable. As many people know, or the ones that have already met me, know that I'm quite a noob on the web dev part yet. And I find it really hard to come up with all the web dev things that I have to learn, plus all the Holochain things that I have to learn. And having, this is a direct channel with someone who knows, and it's pure gold. So thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, and thank you for the REA stuff. I already started going down that rabbit hole, so I appreciate that help.
Good.
Yeah, Guillermo, thank you. I picked up a few things as well that I didn't know, I wasn't sure about, so I really appreciate it as well.
Okay, yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you so much to be here. I think also improving or not, adding, connecting with each other a lot is very important right now in the Holochain community, and we haven't done that as much as needed maybe in the past, but now I'm seeing some more of that, so that's really good. So okay, yeah, we're in contact in the forum, and see you next week.
See each other at the forum, guys, and see you next week. Bye.
Ciao. Oh, see you soon.
Bye.